This is episode number 119 of the Guns Magazine podcast. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. But first, before we get started, let's have a quick chat about our sponsor, Luth-AR. Luth-AR is home of the NBA buttstocks, which are affordable, lightweight, fully adjustable buttstocks for AR-15 fixed and collapsible rifles. But that's not all. Luth-AR is your one-stop shop for build kits, replacement parts, and custom accessories including the chubby grip, palm hand guards, oversized switch safety, and paddle bolt catch. Luth-AR is proudly made in the USA, and with 4 decades of experience, will continue their mission of innovate to dominate with high-quality products for your ARs. Find out more at luthar.com. In today's episode, we talk to PJ Hermosa, the CEO of U.S. Law Shield. U.S. Law Shield is a program which provides attorneys to defend people who have lawfully used force in a self-defense situation. During our chat, we cover some of the important things you need to think about after the smoke clears when you've used force, especially deadly force, against a bad person. Now here's my chat with PJ Hermosa. Well, good afternoon, PJ.
Hey, good afternoon, Brent.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us here at the Guns Magazine podcast. And this is something that I got to admit, until I started doing my research, I wasn't sure that I was really concerned about this. But the more I did reading and talking to other people, this is a very important topic for anybody that carries a weapon or ever anticipates defending themselves. So you are the CEO of U.S. Law Shield, which is the largest provider of legal services for those in the self-defense community. Now, I know you started small. It started as Texas Law Shield. Can you kind of walk me through how you guys started in one state and this thing blew up to be enormous now?
Yeah, well, it started in Texas, the good old Texas here where, a majority of us grow up with guns, right? And, it was the founding attorneys, our program's founded by attorneys. So that's key number one. But they saw all the changes in the law coming, with Stand Your Ground and Castle Doctrine. And as attorneys, they saw that and said, oh, how is that going to work, right? You're going to ask a jury to just, ignore facts because somebody claimed that it was self-defense, right? To ignore some of the evidence. So scratch their head and say, well, this is going to go badly, right? And so the first case that really pops up that kind of is plastered all over the news is the Joe Horn incident here in Texas. It actually happened not just like a stone's throw away from our office in Pasadena outside of Houston. And that showed, just the synopsis really quick, is Joe defended himself and defended his neighbor's house from being robbed, and made the mistake of being on 911 during the whole incident. And everything was recorded, from him loading shotgun shells into the shotgun, to him cocking the shotgun, to him going outside and all you hear is bang, bang, right?
Yeah.
So that and what he said on the 911 call painted an ugly picture for his plea to self-defense. Luckily for Joe, there was a credible eyewitness that saw the whole confrontation, and that Joe wasn't in fact stopping someone from stealing property. He was in fact standing his ground and defending his life. So after seeing that pivotal case right there where it challenged Stand Your Ground, the attorneys that founded this program said, oh my gosh, we need to provide protection for gun owners now. It could go terribly wrong. And poor old Joe spent a lot of time, a lot of money going through this process. And so that's where Texas Law Shield was founded. And, we've since grown out of our Texas roots and gone nationwide. And we currently are the largest. We have the most members under our coverage in the country.
Well, I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and I've been in situations where I've seen folks that have had to defend themselves, both police officers and private citizens, and the last thing they ever think about is legal representation. But yet the aftermath, legally speaking, can be unbelievably devastating, not just in terms of losing maybe your house and everything you've worked for or ever will work for, but now we're seeing a lot of folks are being charged with crimes. So this is such an important concept now. So talk a little bit about where do you see the problem in terms of for folks that do carry firearms and may defend themselves. I mean, personally, I see it as we've got a big target on our back now because of changes among a certain segment of society.
Absolutely. The times have changed. We've been doing this about 11 years. And 11 years ago, gun owners were worried about being sued. Now I'd have to tell gun owners, you should be worried about staying out of jail first. Right? The times have changed where self-defense was not as clearly a concept defined in the law, but, was the legal system worked a little better, if you want to put it that way, right? Less political. Some would argue it's always been political, but it's gotten substantially worse.
Yes, definitely.
Right? So, times have changed. Everybody was worried about civil liability. Oh, I need to protect myself for millions of dollars. I need to have umbrella policy. I need to have this. I need to have that. But the reality is the civil side should not be your worry as much as the criminal side. And if I have to explain here that most states, if you are criminally acquitted and your act of self-defense is justified, you're given immunity from civil liability. So that means you don't have to worry about the civil lawsuit, right? You don't have to buy coverage for millions of dollars. What you need is legal defense. You need an attorney by your side to walk you through the process to make sure that your 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments are protected. That is key. And that's where it's completely different. So is there civil liability? That, just to go back to your question, yes. You can be sued for anything and everything. People could sue you for the color of your hair, the shirt you're wearing, the logo you use on your website. You could be sued for anything. But in these scenarios, self-defense, I'll tell you, in the 11 years that we've been doing this, we've never seen so many self-defense cases being charged as crimes and going through the rigmarole of the legal system, and that gun owner questioning whether they're going to be free or not, whether they're going to lose their gun rights, and that is the scariest thing. Civil liability. Look, when the criminal side first, worry about the civil next, right? Because if you win the criminal side, that means you did everything right. That means your 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment rights were protected, and everything went in your favor.
Yeah. I've preached for years, both to, again, my fellow law enforcement officers and private citizens, that you do need to at least have kind of an emergency action plan in your head once the smoke clears and you're safe. But talk a little bit about how important it is to have an attorney that understands these kind of use of force cases, because what I always hear is, well, I've got my attorney that handled my house sale and those kind of things, and I'll just give him a call and everything will be fine. And it's a lot more complicated than that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, I'm not an attorney. I run the business here, but our attorneys will tell you that after doing this for so long, handling thousands of cases, that it matters who you call, right? Yep. It definitely matters who you call. And also, if that attorney is going to be available, because most of these cases happen, self-defense happens at after 9 p.m., right?
Yeah,
to
exactly.
3 in the morning. It's not going to happen during regular business hours where you can, easily coordinate with an attorney. You need access to an attorney that's going to pick up the phone and know how to handle these situations, because the fact is there might, we used to preach over and over that, look, don't say anything. Don't say anything to the cops. Don't say anything to 911. Just don't say anything. And the reason why we took such a hard stance on that is because we don't want them to say anything without legal counsel.
Right.
Right. But the reality is you might want to say something. Right. So, for instance, let's say you got carjacked. You pulled your gun. Carjacker runs off. Right. You see him run into a ditch with his weapon. You see him throw the weapon. When the police arrive, you might want to tell them, hey, he ran that way and threw his weapon over there. Right. So there may be facts that are crucial to your case that you want to divulge, but please do not do it without speaking to counsel.
Right.
And, another thing about counsel is, look at your ex-law enforcement. Law enforcement understands that after one of these self-defense incidences, you need to seek counsel. You need to talk to someone. You need to calm down. Right.
Yeah.
So time and time again, we see members in situations where once they ask for their lawyer, kind of the demeanor of law enforcement changes. They become less aggressive. They're like, okay, we gotta take a breather. We gotta talk this out. We gotta let this guy seek counsel. Right? It changes that adrenaline flow that's going and the pace of that situation when you ask for legal counsel. So we've seen that time and time again.
And I'll say on the police side, that makes a lot of sense, because if we show up at an incident and I've got a guy standing there next to a gun and there's another guy that's dead there with a gun, and this guy won't talk to me, I'm thinking, what's going on here? Something's funny. But if he says, I'd like to talk to you, sir, but I really need to talk to counsel. Okay, I get that. No harm, no foul. It kind of puts everything, freezes everything at the moment, So
absolutely.
If you have not thought that through and maybe even talked to counsel beforehand, which we'll get to that in a moment, but that is kind of the dividing line for law enforcement when it comes to investigating something. When you have a focus of the investigation and he or she says, I need to talk to counsel, we kind of got to go, okay.
It's the pause button, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's crazy because no one ever thinks these situations all the way through in their head. They may not know how the situation actually works or plays out. But, we put articles out all the time. And one of them that I'm reminded of in this situation is that bad guys dial 911.
Absolutely.
So this from being ex-law enforcement, and the law-abiding good guy doesn't think like that, right? We think, all right, police show up on scene. It's obvious I'm the good guy, right?
Yep.
Obvious, bad guy was the other guy. However, bad guy ran off, called 911 and said, you're the bad guy. So now police are showing up on scene and you're the aggressor, and they're going to handle you appropriately because that's the information they're operating off of, right? People don't understand that. They don't think it through.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, a very sobering moment is when you go through that and you get the taste of the legal process yourself. That's a very sobering moment. Those handcuffs go on. You're like, oh, well, what happened? Why am I being handcuffed? Right?
Yeah.
Why am I being questioned? Totally changes, right? The assumptions go out the window. Investigation starts. Facts have to come out. They're written down, recorded, and you need to make sure your rights are protected.
Well, I've often said the scariest thing in the world is when you hear you have the right to remain silent, because anybody, regardless of intellect, knows at that point things just got real serious. And unfortunately, I realize this is a process just exactly like deadly force incidents. Most of us have it in our head because we've seen it on TV and Hollywood, and it is absolutely not like that. It's a lot generally slower process. It's a more methodical process. And it's funny because you rarely see the attorney representing maybe the good guy, except if they're trying to vilify that attorney. And, he always turns out to be sleazy and shady. But it is so different in real life than what it is portrayed in the movies and TV.
In the movies, look, there's always an antagonist and a protagonist, right? In real life, they could both be the antagonists, right?
Yep.
It's just at some point it turned, right? We see that time and time again with family disputes and things like that, right? It at some point the dispute changes, and now who was in the right, but who started it, right?
Yeah.
There's just so many facts and nuances that have to be sorted out. Plus TV, man, every Law and Order episode, there's some sort of DNA evidence or eyewitness or, facts that come out from a secret folder that all of a sudden solves the case. Look, real life is not like that. Some of the worst evidence you'd ever have in your case is eyewitness evidence, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen it over and over. That's some of the worst evidence you could possibly have. The people don't remember all the facts; they remember fragments, and then it counteracts or contradicts real hard evidence that you have, and then it leads everything in question. So if I might add here is that the process itself, the law-abiding gun owner needs to understand that the legal system is a system, and that the system that they have no clue. If they can recite me the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, maybe I'll give them a pass, right?
Yeah.
But, they don't know how it actually works.
Yep.
And there's a lot of assumptions. And just like any system, the legal system is a system that's imperfect because it is driven by people, right? The people are what makes the system imperfect. The political influences, the nightly news, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, it makes the system imperfect. And, you get political biased, you get racial biased, you get sexist biased, you get all these things. And no matter how a jury is guided to be impartial, there's also agents along the way that have to take information and bring it to trial. And that process somehow gets, messed up along the way. And plus, the one running the show, directing everything, is a judge who's both a politician and an attorney, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's difficult, and a lot of law-abiding people say, "Well, I'm the good guy. Why do I need this?" The fact is, you're a number going through a legal system that is imperfect. Why wouldn't you want this?
Exactly. And, when I talk to friends about the whole process, one of the things that I tell them, an attorney the attorney knows how to work your way through the legal system, because it's like any other complicated thing. You got to kind of have insider knowledge of how the whole thing works. But it also, I think the 50% of what a good attorney does is keep your client from saying dumb stuff. Because how many times have we seen, oh my God, the stress after a lethal force incident, sky high. I've done it myself. You start just kind of running off at the mouth, and people will take things out of context that can look bad for you. And then nowadays, unfortunately, we have people standing there with cameras. We have social media. And if you try to sit there, the more you try to explain, generally, the worse it sounds or looks for you. So talk a little bit about that, about how attorneys can help just keep their client under control and let them do all the heavy lifting in terms of talking to folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying earlier, there are some facts that you might want to put on record immediately. So in order to help the investigation, and that really needs to be front and center. In the Jack Wilson case up in White Settlement, look, the whole thing was caught on video. Mm-hmm. Clearly, he stopped a heinous crime from getting worse. But every three-letter agency was out there asking him questions, taking their own notes, taking their own recordings. Any inconsistency in what Jack was saying or reporting to all these agencies, they're going to compare notes, and they're going to start questioning something that was clearly a heroic act. And it should not have taken 9 months to clear his name, but it did. Yep. And that's how slow and how painful this is in this process. So an attorney, luckily in Jack's case, because of the severity of it, we were able to get an attorney on scene within a couple of hours.
Wow.
Attorney drove out from Dallas to to handle everything. Yeah, because they were lined up, all the agencies. We got questions, and luckily Jack was not only a member, but he's an instructor and offers U.S. Law Shield often to his students, and so he understood what to do. And he didn't say a word. He's like, my attorney's on the way. We're just going to sit here and, stare at each other.
Yeah.
And so he knew the importance of the process, and he knew he was the good guy, and he knew he didn't have to say anything outside of his rights and that would affect his rights. He did it fabulously.
Yeah.
And so having that attorney to direct all of that confrontation, especially in a heated moment, and all the questioning. And look, at the end of the day, law enforcement's job is to kind of figure things out, right? They want to make sure they got the guy.
It's our duty to investigate. It is our sworn duty to investigate anything like this.
Exactly. So, the law enforcement on the scene is going to want to ask questions, going to want to, I saw this, I saw that, right? And the system is designed to have the person of question to have representation, help them through the process. And it's important that you have that, and it's just part of the process.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very interesting. I didn't realize Jack White was a client of yours and an instructor.
Jack Wilson.
I'm sorry, Jack Wilson in White Settlement. That's how I conflated that in my head. But for those that don't remember, that was a situation. He was church security, and a gentleman was acting weird, and they were eyeballing him the whole time. And the guy pulled out, I believe it was a shotgun maybe, and he killed one person and was headed to the front. Oh, it was two. That's right. Mm-hmm. And was headed to the front to do probably a lot more. And Jack took an incredible shot, and it's all on video. I mean, he was heroic. There's no question. But I think that's why that is such a good example, because I'm sure every cop that was there looked at that tape and went, this is pretty clear cut. But it still, as you said, took 9 months to give him, the official blessing that you're clear.
Yeah, and the way I explain it to a room full of law-abiding folks is say, look, lives were lost. People want answers. They deserve answers, right? Good guy, bad guy, doesn't matter. It needs to be sorted out so answers can be provided to loved ones and families. That's it. And you got to think of the human aspect of it, right? And so with that, if that's going to be done, then you need to make sure that you're following the process. Hey, the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments are there to protect you. Know them, learn them, use them.
Yeah. I'm sure that your group provides guidance to folks for pre-planning purposes. If this happens, here's what you should do. And again, you're not an attorney. You're not offering legal advice here, but talk about some of the things that you suggest folks might think about.
First off, the last year and the year before, unprecedented numbers of new gun owners out there.
Yes.
Right. I try to convince all of my instructor friends out there that, look, as much as passionate as you are about training and education, most of those people are not going to pursue training or education, right? Especially around firearms. They just don't have the time, and that's not the American way, right? Everybody, everybody had a problem, right? And then they bought a gun to solve it.
Right. And
likely that gun is not solving anything. It's on the top shelf of their closet, collecting dust, still got the manufacturer's grease on it, right? But people buy stuff off. That's how they buy stuff off QVC, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what? I need a grill spatula with a flashlight on it, right? I totally need that, right? And so the past couple of years, we've been scared by all the craziness that's gone on in the world. A lot of people went out, bought a tool for self-defense to feel safe, but they didn't seek any of the other things that responsibilities or duties, whatever you want to call them, that come around proper gun ownership.
True.
Right?
Very true.
And look, a lot of guns, have laser light combos. It's like, shooting space guns and stuff. A lot of people think they need zero training. Okay, I get it. If you're going to think that way, but look, what about where you can carry? What about the law? What about when you can shoot? So the biggest advice I give to everybody time and time again is you must get educated. You must know the law. And, a lot of responses I get back are, oh, well, I watched a couple of videos or I looked online. Probably the worst place to consume information, especially in a niche market as specific as this. It's not only state specific, but it could be county and municipality specific, the law. Also, it changes constantly. And so you can't consume this information just on any old website. You need to make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. So my biggest guidance to gun owners in general, and I'm going to pick on new gun owners, is at least get educated on the law, at least know when you can carry, know when you can shoot a gun, and delete all those common misconceptions, those old sayings out there. Delete all those from your memory. I hear my dad say them sometimes. I'm like, what? I'm like, really? I don't want you to get caught saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'll say it to this day. I still hear, well, if you just drag him back inside, no,
exactly.
no, don't do that.
That's called tampering with evidence.
Exactly.
Is what that's called.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't understand that. And it was a different time when those sayings came into common use.
Yep.
It was a different time with our litigious, not just civilly litigious society, but criminally litigious society right now. It is a different time. You do not want to do that. And it is not better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Both are bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because, dead and loss of freedom, spending your life in jail, they're both horrible.
Yep. Right.
So the best thing you can do, Brent, my guidance to every gun owner out there is get educated and think beyond pulling that trigger, right? Because after you pull that trigger, there's a lot of things that are going to happen, a lot of things you didn't anticipate, and you need to prepare. Just work them through your head. What am I going to do? Who am I going to call? Do I have someone to call? What if I just shot someone? They're laying there. I have a gun in my hand. Police are rolling up. What do I do with the gun? Right? How do I not get shot? The police thinking I'm the bad guy, right?
Yep.
You got to think through all these scenarios, and not just from the point where you pull the trigger, where most people stop, but all the way through.
Yeah.
And that's very important because, again, I hate that I'm just harping on it today over and over, but your rights are there. We're here to activate those constitutional rights for you.
Yep. Let's walk through a theoretical scenario. We won't say any names, dates, or places, but let's use me as an example. I'm driving down the street in the big city and somebody tries to carjack me and I end up shooting him and they're dead right there. And I call 911. Talk about, in that theoretical scenario, how things happen on your end and then how it goes down from there.
Sure. So we need to clarify, like in this situations where I'm saying, hey, call the attorney before the police arrive or before you call 911. Those are in situations where there's no one dead, really. Right. Or no emergency services are needed. Mm-hmm. But in your situation, emergency services are needed. So call 911 immediately. Right. But make sure you're safe. There's no other bad guys. Bad guys have friends, right? They normally come with friends. So make sure you're safe. Make sure your family's safe or whoever you have with you. Get to a safe location. Call 911. Tell them your location, that you need emergency services. Always ask police, ambulance, and that you are the good guy. You are the victim and what you're wearing. And then that's all you got to say.
Right.
That's all you got to say. And so at least when the police roll up, they know you're the good guy. They know that's the bad guy. And then emergency services are on the way to take care of business. And, a lot of people ask, well, should you render aid? Totally up to you. I'm not even going to make a suggestion there. Totally up to you.
Right.
So after that, you make that 911 call, hang up, then call the number on the back of our membership card and talk to an attorney. That is key. And I say our membership card, I'm being biased here, but really just get a hold of an attorney.
Right.
Period. And tell your attorney exactly what happened. And keep in mind that conversation you're having with your attorney at that point on the phone is attorney-client privilege. So even if it's overheard or anything like that, it's not admissible, right? It's protected. That's a protected conversation you're having with your lawyer.
Right.
And get that guidance right then and there. So when the police arrive, you can even have your attorney on the phone when you're talking to the police and, tell them the facts that need to be said and say, hey, I will make a statement at a later time once I'm calming down, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there's all kinds of silly games that have people have put out there that, always ask for an ambulance and fake a heart attack and all that. Look, no, just be straightforward. Here are the facts. I'll make a statement at a later time. I have counsel if you need, and if the cops are pressuring you, right? Or, there's just a heated situation. You can always ask for a supervisor, right?
Yep.
You can always get the attorney back on the phone, right? There's no reason to escalate any situation. It's a process and it's going to be long and drawn out and painful. So just buckle up and go through the process.
Yep. And one thing I'll say from the cop side of that is, and the best thing I ever heard was, I'm really shook up right now and I want to cooperate with you guys, but I need to wait for my attorney.
Yeah.
I get that.
Simple.
We all get that, So, and it doesn't look like you're trying to evade or be uncooperative because you said, I'm trying to be cooperative, but I need to calm down and I need my attorney here. Everybody
that's
gets
perfect.
that.
That's perfect.
Now we're in the phase where all the shouting is over. You've got an attorney on your side.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work with a service like yours in terms, because the bills rack up really quick? I know most attorneys in my area about $250 an hour, and that includes phone calls.
Yep.
So how is that part of it handled? Because sometimes these things can literally drag out for years.
For sure. And, not only we all know attorneys are expensive, $250 to $1,000 an hour, depending on. And here's the thing. There's no rate sheet for attorneys. They will charge what the market will bear.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what happens next is you're going to have to find an attorney, right? If you don't have one, and you're going to have to go through and explain the story and do all those things. But with our program, you made that call, you're already talking to your attorney, right? From the moment it happened. And so the next steps, look, if the unfortunate happens and that you get taken into custody, your gun gets put in for evidence and you're downtown, as they say it, right? And they're asking questions and things like that. Your attorney will be there every step of the way. And, some states have grand juries. So through a grand jury proceeding, through a trial, if need be, all the way through if an appeal is needed. And even if you get a civil lawsuit, our attorneys and our program attorneys will defend against a civil lawsuit. So if you do every one of these steps in the process and you follow it and you had a good shoot and you protected your rights, the attorney was there by your side, everything went just as it should. When you get that civil lawsuit, our attorney just has to go in and argue, hey, this was a justified shooting. And you need to throw this case out. You need to throw this lawsuit out because we're no billed in criminal court. And so sometimes it's that smooth. But I'll tell you, when it's not smooth, we have murder cases that last 2-3 years. And, if we had to put a price tag to it, it'd be definitely 6 to 7 figures. We're throwing a lot of experience and high priced attorneys at it. Because they're on our team and they have the level of experience when it comes to self-defense. And I just talked to a self-defense expert witness who charges $12,000 a day.
Yeah.
So our attorneys charge a lot too, because all they do is self-defense and use of force cases for both civilian and law enforcement. So they get to charge what the market will bear. But fortunately, if you're a member, you only pay $10.95 a month.
Well, I was going to say, if you look at, this is a fairly low odds type of event in your life, at least hopefully. And then if you live in South Central LA, maybe not, but most of us probably won't use it.
Double up on coverage if you live up there.
Exactly. But when you look at the monthly cost versus 1 hour of an attorney, and that is just a general attorney. And there's another, point that I kind of started to make earlier and we got off, but all attorneys are not created equal. It's like if you've got cancer, you don't go to a general practitioner. And if you have, you need a knee replacement, you don't go to an obstetrician. So talk a little bit about that, about the qualifications of attorneys that are involved in these kind of cases.
For sure. So the type of attorney you're going to need is a trial attorney, right? There's attorneys that do tax law. There's attorneys that write contracts. There's attorneys that never step foot in an actual trial or courtroom.
Exactly.
Right. And a lot of people don't understand that. A trial attorney is a special breed of attorneys because they have to be able to do their investigation, put the story together, call on all the pieces needed and expert witnesses and make the case, right? Which if you want to think of it in simple terms, they got to make the pitch, right?
Right.
They got to take all the facts and evidence and make the pitch that what you did was right and justified. And that is a special attorney to do that. Now, the experience becomes huge because, well, one, we saw this in the Rittenhouse case. Prosecutors, because of political pressures, are getting a lot more aggressive in their tactics here. So having an attorney who knows how to access those resources, who knows the laws, and who knows the complexities in the laws and how they apply. Texas is a fairly gun-friendly state, but there are nuances in the law that make it pretty gray. And I hate to use the term gray because what's written is black and white, but the interpretation could be interpreted very differently. And for instance, Texas, written in the black and white letters, allows you to use deadly force in the nighttime for criminal mischief.
Oh, my.
Yeah. This? That could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That could be teenagers' toilet paper in your house.
Yeah. Don't be shooting kids TP in your front yard. That would go bad in any jurisdiction.
No, because there's one word and written in all. You'll see if, and, or, but, and then this word that just makes everything confusing. Reasonable.
Reasonableness.
Right?
Yep.
What does that mean? I don't know, right? Those 12 people on your jury are going to define what reasonable is.
Exactly.
So you have to have an attorney that understands these nuances in the law and understands self-defense and how it's going to be compared to, from not only the media perspective, but the jury's perspective and all the pre-existing biases coming into this courtroom, that they're going to understand that people don't really know what they're talking about, right? And you got to help navigate and sell the case, sell the story that this is justified self-defense, because the way the law is written helps our argument and our case, and it was reasonable, right?
Exactly.
And so it is not clear cut and defined, and you're just doing the multiplication and the math, and it all works out, right? No, it is a bunch of facts, bunch of evidence, and a lot of messy arguments and interpretations. So you need someone who's been through that time and time again. And one last thing about attorneys and experience is, look, a lot of times when you go into smaller municipalities and counties, we've seen this time and time again, our attorneys go into a smaller county in Texas. I'm not going to name names, but a smaller county in Texas, they go, oh, look, the big city lawyers coming to work this case.
Yeah.
We found it far better to get local counsel on situations like that,
right,
and us sit second chair to local counsel, because local counsel knows how to navigate the politics, the judges, the DAs, and the local, municipality. And if it's a small one, they're all talking to each other. Their kids probably go to the same school, and you're dealing with a lot more than the case at hand.
That's a smart way to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the time we've got left, you've been gracious enough to give us your take on all these questions that are so important. But tell me about U.S. Law Shield itself.
Absolutely. So like I stated earlier, it's a program, and the only program out there that was founded by attorneys. And, we have coined the term legal defense for self-defense, because if it is an act of self-defense, whether it is a gun, a knife, a weapon of opportunity, a toaster, a frying pan, we are here to defend you. And the number one selling point of our program is that we provide immediate access to an attorney. You're not going to get that in most of the programs out there. And as I was stating earlier, you get that attorney-client privilege established up front. You get that moment of pause, right? You get to sort things out, protect your rights, and kind of move along the process, because a process it's one way in, one way out, right? You're going to go through it. And so that is very important. And we are there to protect members from start to finish, right? From start is through with our Attorney Response 365 program, which gives you access to an attorney. 3 a.m. Christmas morning, you call the number on the back of your member card, you will have an attorney. All the way to our Freedom Protection Plan, where we will defend you all the way through, from investigation, grand jury, trial, appeals, even civil trial. We will defend you all the way through. And then lastly is the education. You asked me what's the one thing, piece of guidance or one thing I would recommend for all gun owners, and is to get educated and to know, we always say armed and educated, right? To know the law. And we're not just talking about guns here, folks.
Right.
Any level of self-defense, any weapon. There's been a lot of cases recently. MMA is like a big thing now, and everybody wants to say mixed martial arts and things like that. And so there's a lot of people that I've seen back in the day, and even me as a kid, my dad, there were just normal fist fights, right?
Right.
But now that there's brutality in the streets,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yep.
sometimes. And so these things are looked at as just as dangerous as someone using a gun,
Yep.
right? Using fists, hands, all that. There's liability there for sure, not just civilly, but criminally. So we cover that. And the education and being prepared and knowing when you can defend yourself, where you can carry, is key, especially with constitutional carry being all the rage right now. There's a lot of people buying guns and just carrying without any knowledge of anything. And that is just dangerous, especially, and you take a state like Texas, we decided, hey, we're going to give you this right, but we're going to invent some new signs, right? We're going to put some more parameters around this, and no one has a clue what they are. So you need to be armed and educated. And that's the last thing that we provide is education, and all that for $10.95 a month. We have additional add-ons. If you travel out of state, we cover identity theft from stolen guns. So if your gun is stolen or lost, and a lot of guns are being stolen right now, folks. I mean, you see gun stores getting broken into, but cars, crazy amounts. I think at least a couple 100,000 guns were stolen last year. And those guns are then going to be used in a crime, and that could make its way back to you. We offer coverage for that as well, bail bonds and expert witness, and then minor child coverage. A lot of people give their child access to a .22 or baseball bats or whatever to defend themselves, or they're forced to defend themselves at school or anything like that. We offer coverage for minor children as well.
And how can folks find out more about U.S. Law Shield?
Just go to uslawshield.com and read up and sign up.
PJ Hermosa, this has been a very interesting chat we've had. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to enlighten me. And I got to admit, I am not a client yet of U.S. Law Shield, but after considering it and looking at the cost per month, it does seem like a pretty good bargain for folks that do carry firearms. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
That was a very interesting chat with PJ Hermosa, and I hope it gave you some things to think about, aside from proper sight alignment and trigger press. And with that, I hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Guns Magazine was first on the newsstand, and today we're bringing you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got any questions or comments about the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast directory, YouTube, and of course at gunsmagazine.com. And also, while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at americanhandgunner.com, americancop.com, and our numerous special editions available on our websites. Most of all, when you're online, I'd also appreciate it if you'd share a favorite episode or some kind words on your own social media. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.